Hi, everybody. My name is Mark Olson. I was presented some very official language here I'm going to read now. Hello, and welcome to the LA Times Live. Oh, gosh. Oh, no. Again, I'm Mark Olson with the LA Times. Welcome to the LA Times Live, the Sundance Film Festival, presented by Chase Sapphire. We're here today with the cast and some of the filmmakers of Hala. And thank you for joining us. I want to let you know that portions from this conversation may be included in our LA Times entertainment podcast, The Real, which is available wherever you listen to podcasts. And you can visit latimes.com, The Real, and listen here as well. So now please join me. We have the writer and the director of the film, Minho Bag. And from the cast of the film, we have Geraldine Viswanathan, Anna Klumsky, Gabriel Luna, Azad Khan, and producer Jada Pinkett Smith. So, Manal, I'll begin with a question for you, maybe for people who don't know what the movie's about. Maybe you can kind of describe the movie, but also a little bit of kind of the origins of the story of it for you.
Hala is a Muslim teenager's coming-of-age story. It's about this is too close, I realize. It's about a girl who's navigating these two identities and forming her own. And she is learning things about her family that she didn't know about before. And it's coming at this very vital time in her life, in her senior year of high school. And the rest of the movie sort of is about that sort of struggle of reconciling these two identities. The story is very personal to me. It's based on my, parts of it are literally lifted verbatim from my own life, but others are, the details are loose but emotionally true. My parents are immigrants, they're from Pakistan, and I really wanted to write and direct a movie that sort of encapsulated that family dynamic that was in my own home, because that was something that I didn't see on screen when I was growing up.
And Jada, for you as a producer, are these the kind of projects that you want to be getting involved in to sort of elevate creative voices like Manal?
Absolutely. That was part of the draw. I mean, I met Min and I saw her short and I loved it, but I was also very interested in hearing the story of what it is like to be a young American Muslim girl and trying to reconcile, your traditional lifestyle with being in America, right? And all that comes with that and the influences of that. And I just found a lot of parallels in her story to my own journey. And so it's specific, but also universal. And it's a very important story to be told. And so I just think when we can offer resources and help create platforms for these kinds of stories, we should.
And Geraldine, last year you had such a breakout performance from the movie Blockers, and this movie, it's such a different story, it's such a different performance from that film. Was it exciting to you to have people see this other side of you?
Yeah, totally. It couldn't be more different. And I was really excited to do an in-depth character study like this. And yeah, it was the perfect timing because I was so ready to really sink my teeth into something really complex and interesting. Yeah.
And Manal, can you talk a little bit, was this a difficult role to cast?
It's difficult because the story, what we're trying to accomplish in the story is we're photographing a very internal struggle. So we needed an actress that could really encapsulate all these different dimensions of Hala and the things that, so much of the tension in the story is, all that is unspoken and unsaid. And so when we found Geraldine, it became clear she's an incredibly talented comedic actress. Everybody knows that already. But I found something very unexpected in her performance. She brought levity to the role. And it's a part that, it's a girl that takes herself very seriously. And so it was nice to have that contrast. And to have somebody who could play, you know, struggling with so much at once, but without dialogue, without sort of, you know, dictating too much, you know, through hand-holding. It's a very subtle filmmaking that we're trying to do here, and I think it was challenging for all of those reasons, but most of it was just because it's a very internal role, and I mean, Geraldine knocks it out of the park. You'll see when you watch the movie, but it's hard to do, and she definitely did it.
And Azad, the movie captures something I think very specific about the sort of family dynamics within this specific culture. Was this something, had you ever been offered a role quite like this before?
No, because this is my first film. As I said before also in different interviews too, this was a dream come true role for me. It's my first film, and I have to play a Muslim Pakistani American who's lived about 30 years of his life in Pakistan. That's exactly who I am. So when I came here, when I met people, and now I've been here in US for about 12 years, and I've seen the kind of relationship dynamic, intricate relationship issues that people are having, and the complex human relationship that we are feeling as an immigrant. I think this film will resonate with everybody, no matter who you are. If you believe in any religion, if you're an immigrant, first generation, second generation, if you're in your adolescence, or if you are at a juncture where you are parents and you think that you are doing all the right things for your kids, but sometimes they're not, and you might come across as a villain in their eyes and the audience, but you really believe in certain things because of your mental conditioning, because of your already neuroset pathways, which makes cut out a certain kind of lifestyle that you want your family to fit in. And if they will resist, then you can be a very bad person also at the same time, not realizing that you are becoming one. And then it's about life, it's about evolving, it's about experiences. So you have to let them do all those things, so that in order to be a better human beings, better than themselves, and follow their dream. That was the best thing so far that has ever happened to me in last about 12 years after doing my radio and TV show.
And Gabriel, Anna, one of the things I like so much about the movie is that every one of the characters, even relatively supporting characters, get a very sort of full storyline and are really presented with very genuine sort of moral dilemmas and things they have to go through. Was that, Gabriel, for you, was that one of the things that excited you about this character?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that we were joking earlier, prior to this film, I played a superhero whose face burns off, and a cop, and you know, some like action hero type roles, and then we had a discussion, my team and I, that we wanted to find a story that was just about a human man who had problems. And so we found this one, and we read the script, and immediately you see that it's a female protagonist, which is already rare, and then she's young, which is also rare. She's Muslim, extremely rare. So all of this, you have this opportunity to support a film, be part of something that you knew him instantly is absolutely rare and unique, and something that hasn't really happened, and you just want to be part of it in whatever fashion. So I was happy to contribute whatever I did to the film, and yeah, so yeah.
And Anna, I appreciate so much that your character is someone who's kind of involved in this sort of ambiguously inappropriate relationship with the father, and yet you still sort of really show up in a really genuine way for the young woman. And did you like the fact that this character that in a lot of movies would be sort of a villain or a throwaway, here is given a lot more humanity?
Yeah, I think that's what drew me to the entire script. Is Minhal had such a way of holistically seeing every character as very, very human, very round, and yeah, nobody got like kind of a treatment where they weren't even gonna like, it was like, oh, I know who she is. It's like Minhal really wants to find out via the storytelling what we can all find about these characters, and therefore what the audience can find about these characters. And that to me is the richest type of storytelling, the richest type of acting, is to find roles that are genuine and have all of their ups and downs, have all their dualities, have all of their struggles, and really are all kind of trying to do their best with what they're handed. And yeah, Shannon gets to be that, and yeah, she's really complex, and her choices have been very, probably not even her favorite choices. And you kind of, we don't even have to answer half of it, because she's not answering half of that. She's just living it, and that's how I feel all the characters are drawn in this, and it's a beautiful way to tell a story.
And Minal, can you talk a little bit about the writing process, and sort of, was it difficult for you to make all of the characters as sort of layered as they are?
When I was writing the script, it was always clear that Hala was going to be the protagonist, and it's going to be from her perspective. And so there are things that she doesn't know about, her family, and that she doesn't know about her teacher or Shannon. And so I think I wanted it to be that she has that the perspective starts to open up as you watch the movie. At first glance, people seem a certain way, and like teenagers have blinders on. But then part of your coming of age is that those blinders open up. You start to see that you're not the center of the universe. Your parents are not just extensions of yourself. They are people with wants and needs, and they have a whole history that existed before you. And there are people in your life that are playing these supporting roles, and your teacher or someone you meet in an office, and you realize that they have sort of their own thing going on that you may not be fully aware of. And it was something I was very intentionally trying to write into the script, because Hala is learning a lot about, it's not all about you, and that her world is opening up, and part of that is recognizing that someone comes into your life and they have their own sort of arc. They may be a supporting character in her story, and they're the protagonist of their own, and it was important for every character to feel that way.
And Geraldine, given that this is such a personal story for Minho, did you connect to it in the same way? Were there things about this character that resonated for you as well?
Yeah, definitely. And I also had the instinct of what is it like growing up as a young Muslim woman in Chicago? I just thought that would be fascinating to immerse myself in that world, especially with, just completely trusting Minhal. And yeah, I think everyone can relate to this. I think the growing pains of coming of age, that moment where, you might have been protected your whole life, and then you're faced with reality for the first time. There's just so many pivotal moments that are shown in this movie that I think that I've had, that I think everyone has. And I mean, the shift in the dynamic with parents, I think that is such a profound thing that we all go through, and I think we rarely see that in this way. Yeah.
Because Minhal, in particular, the relationship, not just with her father, but between Hala and her mother, really sort of gets elevated as the story goes along. And was that something that was difficult for you to kind of modulate, or to kind of leave that as something to be revealed as the story progresses?
Well, it was something that I was learning as I was making the movie and writing the script. In the short that I made several years ago, it was very much like a subplot, and one sort of reaction to the short was that, the family dynamic is really interesting, and so I had to really dig into Hala's relationship with her mother and her father. Her relationship with her mother is very strained, because her mother has come here, she's an immigrant, she is not speaking English, so she only speaks to Hala in Urdu, and Hala is first generation. She goes to an American school, she speaks English. I mean, there's already a cultural and generational gap, and it was something that I was wrestling with in my own life, was is this gap insurmountable? And it was something I was exploring in this movie, that I do think in the case of, Iram, Hala's mother, she is coming around to recognizing that her daughter may not be exactly, fit a type or fit a mold, that this is the ideal daughter, but she is still her daughter, and she has to learn to love her, flaws and all, and that they're going to meet each other halfway. And that was always the intent. Going into it, I wanted to have that, because I think it's hopeful. It's hopeful. I want that for young women and their mothers, to be able to see that gap and not think that it's too big.
And Jada, can you talk a little bit more about your kind of part of the process? Like once you sort of sign on to the project, what did you do maybe throughout development or even through production or post-production to sort of help Min-Hall in achieving the film?
Well, basically, I just tried to do what she asked. You know, honestly, because it's her first project, and being an artist myself, if I decide to work with an artist, I have full trust in them, right? So I don't micromanage. And it's not until there might be an issue, you know? And it wasn't really until the end that Min was like, I'm having an issue. And we discussed it, and I helped her fix it. So, but pretty much for the production, I stayed out of her hair. I really did, because I believe in artists, and I think they should have their vision, and I'm always there as a lifeline if something's needed. And so she called me that one crucial moment.
I mean, I think that our relationship was, when I pitched you the movie, it was immediate that you wanted to do it.
Yep.
And then in the process of making the movie and, you know, being in the editing process, having Jada watch cuts and contribute and give her real thoughts as an artist herself, you know, genuine feedback about sort of the impact that the story will have and the responsibility that we have. And I think that was really important, as you know, to hear that from someone who has so much more experience than me in film. It was really, really helpful.
But just knowing at the end of the day she was gonna have the last word.
And the movie is so fearless, but so honest with regards to Hala's sexuality. And was that something that was difficult for you to sort of balance and to work out in the script? Can you talk a little about that element of the story?
I'm so glad you asked this question. Yeah, it was really hard. I mean, I think it's, as someone who grew up Muslim and you know, child of immigrants, sex is something that we'd never talk about in the household. I don't think that word was ever said, and so that was something I had to find out on my own. And in the course of making this movie, it was even incredibly vulnerable to write those scenes and to explore this young woman's sexuality because it felt so taboo, and to even then shoot it and like direct actors in that experience and then to edit it. It was every stage of the process. It was, for me, I was doing something that I have been conditioned from as, you know, as a young person to never talk about. And so it was personally very challenging, but I think I came out on the other side of it feeling like if I don't do this and if I don't put myself out there and be vulnerable in this way, how will the young women feel watching this movie, feel about that part being missing and that not being included in the narrative? And so I felt a real responsibility to do justice by Hala's story because it felt honest to her journey.
And Geraldine, what was it like for you in shooting some of those scenes and the way that Hala, the movie's so, it depicts her as being, you know, very curious about these things, like very honest about these things. What was it like for you in shooting those scenes?
It was, I don't know, it was so deeply intimate, and I have to say that the crew was predominantly women, so I felt really safe, like in the logistical, you know, part of shooting those scenes. And it just felt really delicate, and I felt like we were doing something kind of, honestly, like, I don't know, just refreshing and like kind of revolutionary. Like, we haven't seen that, and it's just like such a delicate thing to try and communicate. And yeah, but I had a great partner in the scene, and Min-Hall was so supportive and amazing when we were shooting that, and yeah.
And Jada, I read that there was an inclusion writer that you all used in putting together the movie, and it's interesting, you know, to know that there was a gender parity on the crew. Do you think that maybe in this instance in particular, that's where in action that makes a difference? Like the shooting of those scenes was different because you had that inclusion writer and you had a more inclusive cast. Can you talk a little bit about like sort of putting forward the inclusion writer and what that meant for you?
Well, I mean, you know, part of the reason that I feel so happy and privileged to be able to flow resources to a filmmaker like Min Hall is because I really do believe that people, artists with voices that aren't heard a lot should have platforms where they're heard. And so part of that inclusion writer is just the idea, you know, after the whole Oscar situation, for me personally as an artist, just having to walk the walk. And this is, you know, just basically my participation in my part. And just flowing resources to artists that might not have necessarily gotten an opportunity to hear their voices heard or have an opportunity to work, you know, in front of the camera, behind the camera. And so, you know, through Overbrook and the many producers that we have there, we just find that to be, you know, very important work for us as a production company. Yeah.
And I would say that it was very intentional from the start that this is a young woman's coming of age, and it's a story about that. And so we needed female perspectives at the table.
Absolutely.
So it was important to have a female department. All of our department heads were women. Our assistant director, our executive producer in the audience right now.
Yeah.
We wanted those perspectives, and I wanted to be challenged and make the movie better. And I think that all of that flowed into the movie, and you can feel it.
Absolutely.
It definitely changed the dynamic on set because it felt very collaborative. People were listening to each other, and ultimately made the story better. And it's unlike any other set I've been on before.
And it's so interesting to me where the movie you made when you were young, My Girl, is one that I have heard many filmmakers, younger women filmmakers, mentioning to me as an influence. And it's kind of not a movie that's typically thought of as part of like the canon, but it seems like one that does in fact reach an audience and have an influence. It's exciting for you to know that work that you do can reach sort of across generations to younger people and like have a real impact on people.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that movie was made 25 years ago. So, actually, maybe it's like, yeah, I think 27 years ago now. Oh, holy crap. Anyway, so, but yeah, you know, so obviously the fact that we're sitting here in 2019 talking about it at Sundance means that it does resonate, I guess. You know, it's that one. I mean, it's funny. I will see influences of it sometimes in things, and I'll go, oh, look at that. That looks like the, you know, like the outfit, or you know, and then you start to realize, oh yeah, you know, that character probably is on people's vision boards. You know, when they're like designing, you know, for a fun home or something. You know, and you're like, oh, okay, that's, but. You know, I personally don't think of it every day, and I don't go around going like, oh, look at how much influence this thing I did when I was 10 years old has. You know, I think that once everybody who were kids in that generation, when we all got to the age where we were like in our 20s, you know, and people could tell me what it meant to them, then it started to go, oh, that meant something to you because you identified with the character because you had a friend who died or this or that. That is really helpful because, you know, growing up with it, it was more like, oh, look at you, you're, you know, like I don't know, like cute kid or whatever, you know what I mean? So it's just nicer as you get older to know, like you say, what impact it had for real instead of just being singled out for it, you know?
Because Minhal, can you talk a little bit about some of the influences for you, whether it was other movies or other artworks in making Hala?
Watched my cinematographer Carolina and I watched like 50 movies ahead of prep, I think. Yeah, and some of our influences, I mean, Andrea Arnold's a huge influence, Celine Sciamma, Xavier Dolan. We had all across the board. I mean, Asghar Farhadi is my favorite filmmaker of all time. A Separation, Mommy, Fish Tank, Ratcatcher. I mean, these are all movies that really influenced me and sort of played, you know, they are helpful in that I was learning so much about this genre of filmmaking of the coming of age, but also starting to see like how this could be sort of something new and different. And I owe so much to those filmmakers for like teaching me about movies and filmmaking and how to tell these really deeply personal stories in a way that is honest.
And Geraldine, now you, you are part of one of the cutest couples on Instagram. And I'm very interested in how, you as someone sort of like, both personally and professionally, are sort of navigating that space of like how much of your private self to allow like to the public.
Yeah, I don't really think about it at all, and I think that probably needs to change soon. But yeah, I don't know. I really haven't, in terms of like Instagram and stuff, I haven't reconsidered how I use it.
But you do have a very funny Instagram. There's a lot of
Thank
jokes
you.
on there.
There's some jokes. Yeah, no, I don't know. I had Instagram since I was like 14, and it just, and
You grew up with it.
yeah, before I knew that you could follow people and stuff, I just thought the filters were cool, and I was like an edgy, but yeah, and every now and then someone's like, oh, you have some followers now. I'm like, do I? Oh no, I should maybe not post that, but yeah.
Because Jada, obviously you are someone with your family, you have done a fantastic job of navigating having a very public life and have even adopted to social media quite handily. Like, has that been something that you really do have to consider, or has it just seemed like an organic part of your life?
You talk about Instagram?
Sort of,
Specifically?
just navigating that whole space for you and your family.
Yeah, I guess navigating. Yeah, I guess it is navigation, actually. But it's kind of organic in how we navigate. I mean, if you look at Will's Instagram, it's so Willard, So it is him through and through. It's deeply authentic. If you look at mine, it's me through and through. You look at Jaden's. Disappears, he comes back, that's kind of what he does, Willow, she's just obscure, and that's who she is. So I think, all of our social media is very true to who we are as people. Yeah, but I don't think we think about it in the sense of I think we just use it as another form of expression. Especially, Will, he likes to make people laugh, so he uses it to bring more happiness to the world. And me, I'm always informative and we gotta be on top of this subject. Does everybody know what's happening with this? So that's all, so it's just another extension of ourselves. So I guess that's fun. I know Will in particular really enjoys his social media. He loves having direct communication with the audience now. So he's very happy with it.
I was just telling Jamal the story. I just came off a shoot in Budapest, and Will and everybody was leaving after they wrapped up Gemini Man. And he went up on that bridge and did the thing with the drone, and it all went around. He's playing the Drake song. And then for the rest of the time I'm there, in order to give directions, they're like, oh yeah, just go past the Will Smith Bridge. So what was the Chain Bridge is now the Will Smith Bridge. So that's effective social media.
Yeah, there it is.
And that seems like a beautiful place for us to wrap it up. So please, thanks again, please, everybody, to the cast of Hala. And thanks all of you in the audience for joining us today at the LA Times Live at Sundance, presented by Chase Sapphire. We'll be back there tomorrow at 3 with the cast of Paradise Hills. Thanks again.